I'm Kevin Cox, and today I'm going to go over the 8 most subtly stupid arguments I've heard 12-step members make. The reason I say subtly is because once you weed through the threats, the violence, the immature attention seeking, you find a few that actually try to make sense of this cult. So let's get into it. Number 1 is AA has saved millions. AA and NA combined never have and never will have saved millions. It's a big number they love to brag and boast about with absolutely no evidence to show for it. None. It's absolutely false. It's something that sponsors tell the newcomer to keep them coming around. Ask them to prove it and they'll come up with some thoughtless comment like, oh, well, just look at all the sobriety around you. Their brain tells them that just because someone becomes sober, oh, it must have meant that it was a 12-step program that got them sober. Number 2, bad things happen to women everywhere. They say this when I bring up the sexual allegations and harassment of its female members, by its own members. I find it incredibly distasteful to use this excuse and minimize the women who have been sexually assaulted and harassed in these rooms. What they like to do is they like to point the finger and compare out. Oh, well, look at the military sexual assaults. Look at this one. Look at that one. Go ahead, point the finger if it makes you happy, but in what sense does that make it right? Bad things happen to women everywhere. Where else in the world, other than the rooms of AA, do you subject vulnerable women coming off drugs who aren't in the right state of mind with male criminals who also aren't in the right state of mind? Where else in the world, other than the rooms of AA, do you subject women to sit in the same room and next to court-ordered and convicted sex offenders and pedophiles? Where taking advantage of younger, newer women is so prominent that they themselves have accepted and named it 13th stepping. Number 3. Oh, the things you're saying about AA and NA are going to kill people, Kevin. Yeah, disregard the things like AA telling kids addicted to heroin that just the thing they need to get sober is a divine intervention and spiritual awakening. Never mind AA members telling people that they don't need their prescription medications. They just need to let go and let God. Never mind AA's terminology like 13th stepping members, which is senior, more older members taking advantage of and sleeping with younger, newer members. Never mind AA subjecting kids to the same room as hardened criminals. But no, it must be something I'm saying. Number 4, we aren't religious. Really? For a group that holds all of its meetings in a church basement, that worship the big book as if a Bible, which mentions God over 200 times in it, by the way, that members are assigned homework and step work as if in Bible study, for a group that believes divine intervention is required to get sober, for a group that believes so much in their leader, Bill Wilson, who was part of the incredibly religious Oxford group, by the way, that they turned his house into a shrine. That teaches its members to fear but respect drugs and alcohol as if some kind of omnipotent deity. From a rational standpoint, you look pretty damn religious. Number 5, we support any type of recovery. They say this all while one of their best known slogans is, if you don't use AA, then you'll end up a miserable dry drunk. They say this all while they tell their members that the penalty for leaving the cult is jails, institutions, and death. One of the most dangerous things about AA and NA is that when they see someone relapse time and time and time again, they don't say, hey, maybe this program isn't for you, maybe you should try something else. They say, oh, well, keep coming back, it works if you work it, and blame the individual for not trying hard enough or not being spiritual enough. Number 6, we don't force the program on anyone. They say this all while knowing courts are forcing people into their rooms, forcing them by court order and the threat of a harsher sentencing for not making enough meetings. I go back to my previous point. Telling people that if they don't use your program, they will end up a miserable dry drunk or die isn't giving them many options, is it? Not only that, but these 12-step programs also issue 12 promises to its members, promising that members will be amazed before halfway through, promising that you will know a new freedom and a new happiness. This isn't attraction. This is promoting and advertising, taking advantage of vulnerable people willing to believe anything. Number 7, we separate alcoholics to AA and drug addicts to NA. They say this when I bring up the stories of alcoholics that were in AA and turned to drugs because they had to listen to someone talk about drugs for an hour every single night. My response? They absolutely do not. You will find way more people addicted to drugs in AA than you will find people addicted to alcohol. Drugs are the bigger problem now. In an effort to stay relevant, AA started taking in people with drug problems that said, oh, our steps work for everyone. The only real difference between AA and NA is if you prefer hugging strangers, go to NA. If you prefer giving them handshakes, go to AA. Number 8, we do teach people to move on with their lives. They bring this up when I talk about secular programs teaching people to move on with their lives outside of drugs and alcohol. You teach people to worship drugs and alcohol in a church basement. You make people revolve their entire lives around it. People they can see, places they can go, where they can spend an hour every single evening. Your meetings every single night consist of people bringing up their past experience with drugs and alcohol. You teach people that the only way to keep their disease in remission is to make meetings for the rest of their life. You teach people that for the rest of their life they will constantly need to work on their step work. Members are also required for the rest of their life to have a sponsor to help them on their step work. You teach your members that they suffer a lifelong illness to drugs and alcohol. Don't tell me this is teaching people to move on with their lives. How incredibly naive you must be to be living this lifestyle and say, oh yeah, AA has taught me to move on from drugs and alcohol. And that'll do it for these eight rebuttals. Believe me, I have more, but that's for another video. Thank you.